So we'll now move on to Kenneth Ingram. If I could please call you forward. Kenneth is appearing before Council in support of Item 2 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development, dated February 2nd, 2023. It's regarding 442 Scotia Street, Leacock House, the removal of the list of historical resources. 10-minute time, please. Welcome.
Hello, and thank you again so much for having me yet again today and allowing me to speak. As some of you know, I was here last week at the Executive Policy Committee, but today I'm lucky enough to be joined by my girlfriend Heather, who also lives with me in the area of Seven Oaks. We join you today as not just members of the community, but as people who really do care deeply about the history of our neighborhood. Last summer, we bought our first home together in the neighborhood, again, not far from Marymound, although it seems like we've been there a lot longer. Just beyond the countless times we spent walking the area. I grew up going to Kildonan Park, tobogganing, skating, and it takes only a quick trip over the Chief Peguis Bridge to see a plaque of my grandmother's maiden name, Sutherland, because they were among the first of the Scottish settlers to call the area home. Throughout this last year, we really began to take an interest in the local history and the architecture that goes along with it. Particularly so after visiting the Seven Oaks House Museum and being able to stand in a 170-year-old house and the history of the family be told right in the same house that they once existed in. And then I learned that at one point the house spent decades upon decades of just being abandoned, vandalized, and being derelict. But through the work of historians and volunteers, it was able to be restored and into the artifact and the jewel of the neighborhood that it is today. I see a lot of similarities between the Seven Oaks House Museum and the Leacock House. Because while the Seven Oaks House is the oldest house in Winnipeg, the Leacock House is one of the oldest examples we have of the Queen Anne Revival style of architecture. It's a style that's near and dear to my heart, almost entirely due to the fact that we have so many beautiful examples in the area, like the Argue and Lausanne houses on Luxton. And we have the Polson House on Cathedral. For anyone who doesn't know the style here, it's usually characterized by very ornate detailing and woodwork, beautiful fireplaces, wraparound porches, and of course turrets, the small castle-like towers that project vertically, usually on one side of the building. And there's many of these present on the Leacock House, but the Leacock House is particularly unique as a Queen Anne for a couple of other reasons. One, it's over a decade older than any of the other houses I mentioned, even older than historic houses like the Macbeth House or the Delnavert Museum. But it's quite possibly the oldest Queen Anne in the entire area, and that's because the Queen Anne style only really caught on in the prairies around 1890. The other thing that makes it so unique is its location. Queen Anne's are generally located fairly central in modern-day Winnipeg, in areas like the North and West Ends, in Wolseley, in Armstrong's Point, and even the ones in Luxton are fairly south. But the Leacock House sits at the furthest north boundary of the then municipality of West Kildonan, or modern-day Seven Oaks, and it's very far north. Switching gears here, I also want to underline the fact that residents like us and residents as a whole support the great work that Marymound does. And we want to continue to see it expand and through a great initiative like the Healing Center. But I need to put to rest an idea that I saw surfacing over the last while. Because in a case like this, we don't need to make a choice between the expansion of an organization and the preservation of a historical building, essentially pitting kids, more specifically struggling youth, against a historic home. Because the choice between only one of these two simply doesn't need to exist. In this case, the choice is nothing more than a false dichotomy fabricated by those who seem to believe that the extra time and care associated with the preservation of a one-of-a-kind, 140-year-old home are simply not worth it. This philosophy is exactly why if you go onto Manitoba Historical Society's webpage for the architect of the Leacock House, Walter Chesterton, and you look at all the buildings that he designed in Manitoba from 1881 until 1903, and you look under the status column, you're going to see a lot of demolished. And so I'd like to once again conclude by asking this City Council in 2023 what it would like its legacy to be. And ask the real question that we should be asking, which is, do we truly value Winnipeg's earliest history and the few buildings from it that we have left? And I'll leave that answer to you. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll now take questions.